Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I am the void.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void. Coming up with us just shortly here. Are there portals in the astral realm? Like, if we learn to control this place, do we have the ability to, I don't know, go through portals? So I don't see many people talking about portals and things like that other than Robert Monroe and maybe William Buellman in the astral realm. But this guy claims that, you know, he tried to get out of body and he couldn't, but he started to lucid dream and he could get to the OBE state from his lucid dreams and then began to see portals. And so it was an interesting guy, and we're going to be showing this interview tonight. I'll be here with you in the chat all the time. You can also call in at 501-777-5631. And if you can support the Fringe FM, there's tons of ways to support. You can do so on the website. You can do so through YouTube here. And if you can't support monetarily and you still find value and you want to, just listen to the show on the podcast on Spreaker. For some reason, if you listen to the show on Spreaker and it plays a few ads, it kicks us up a little bit for support. So there are ways to support even if you don't have the financial means. Of course, nobody likes ads, right? And even the commercials we try to play, we're trying to get to where it's cooler to do this. But broadcasting 4 to 5 nights a week, it's a lot of work. So, you know, what's up, Joyce? Wu-Tang, Hazy, Karma, Michael. Am I missing somebody yet? Barefoot Hippies. Oh, yeah. And you can go to the Patreon, too, and let me tell you how I do the tarot readings. I don't pull your astrological sign and talk about all that. I do a very old school tarot reading. So there's a whole ceremony that I do around your reading, and then I do the opening of the key spread, which, yeah, it's a little pricey, but I time it correctly, I ritualize it correctly, and it takes me like a few hours to get this done. Probably at least 3 if I'm prepping it right. So it's a pretty intense and deep reading if it's done correctly, and if I do it and I don't feel like it's done correctly, then I'll start over. I don't take that stuff lightly. So you can get those too. You can also join the Patreon. It's like $10 a month and you get access to all the audio downloads and the stuff that we're going to be putting in there. So tonight, Michael L. Martin, Astral Gateways. This is going to be cool. Okay. Tomorrow, one of the last living students of Manly P. Hall, Ronnie Pontiac, will be on here. If you want to check him out, he's been on a few shows, friends of our shows. He's been on Grimerica. He's been on Anthony Tyler's podcast. He's also been on, I believe, the Higher Side Chats, who's another friend of ours. He's been on those shows. So if you want to get to know Ronnie a little bit, and then I would say check those shows out, because tomorrow I'm going to be asking him some questions, right? And then, I think that's it. I think that's all of the announcements that I have before we get into this interview. I've been talking to Gareth and I got to tell the story, man, real quick, because it's cool. So Gareth has a caretaker named Richard. I don't know the guy. I don't know what he looks like, but I did get a picture of Gareth in his t-shirt that we shipped to London. And it's cool. I know for a fact it's real. So Richard is very intrigued. We might actually convert someone to the Fringe, right, from that side. Anyways, and there was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, I finished Jason Quitt's book, and I'm going to do a review video on that. This book is phenomenal, honestly. It really is. If you know how Manly P. Hall talked about there being 7 keys to the divine revelation. So 7 different secrets or 7 different interpretations of the stories or religion, if you want to say that. So we know that there's probably an astrological interpretation. We know that very well. There's also like biological and the anatomy of it all. And they're all true, and it's a trip. Well, Jason really did find something very cool. I don't want to spoil it, so I'll save it for the video, but get the book, Gates of the Anunnaki. All right, I don't want to keep you guys here all night, so we're going to get right into the interview. Here we go. So Mike Martin is here with us tonight, and we're going to be talking about his book, My Dark Explorations, Portal, Gateways, and the Astral by Michael L. Martin. You can find this on Amazon, and he's got another book we're going to talk about too here in just a second, but first I just want to say thanks for coming on the program, brother. It's good to have you on here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here.
So when you hit me up, I heard that the first thing I heard was, hey, I know I saw your show. I think I'd be a good guest for your show. I figured out how to find these gateways in lucid dreaming. No one's ever reached out to me and told me that before. We've had a ton of guests on, some of the bigger names in lucid dreaming and all that on the show a long time ago. And I'd like to get them back, but to talk about gateways in lucid dreaming, that's a whole other thing, man. How did you stumble upon that?
Well, I'll kind of start from the beginning. When I was a little kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old, I started having these events and I didn't understand what they were. And it was this was back in the 70s. So there was no internet or nobody to talk to. So I just would experience them every once in a while. And then I just kind of put them out of my mind. And when I grew up, I was in my 20s, early 20s, and I got this Time Life book series called Mysteries of the Unknown. And one of the first books had out-of-body experiences in it. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I want to check that out. So I went and got the book by Robert Monroe called Journeys Out of the Body.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it really intrigued me. I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try that, and I'm going to succeed. When I set my mind to something, that's just what I do. So I got the book, and I tried a bunch of different ways to separate from my body. None of them seemed to work. So the one thing that I said, let me try the lucid dreaming part. And I had been I've been recording my dreams, documenting those for many years. And because I was, studying the dreams and see if there's anything I can correlate to my regular life. And so I just said, okay, let me document this and I'll figure it out. So I got to the point where in order to realize you're dreaming, you need to be able to ask yourself during the day many times, hey, am I dreaming? And this is what I discovered. If you're dreaming and you look at something and turn your head and look at it again, it will have changed. So what I did was I would set my watch an alarm many times during the day. And I would just ask myself, am I dreaming? And I'd look at something like a chair. I turn my head, I turn back and look at it. And if it hadn't changed, then I said, oh, no, I'm not dreaming. But if it had, then I knew at that point that I was dreaming. So I kept doing it all the time, over and over. And I would focus on making sure every night I would try, I was just diligent about it. And it took me about 11 months before I had my first successful lucid dream. I got to the point where I'm in a dream, something set me off. I realized it, and I told myself, I want to have an out-of-body experience. As soon as I thought that, it's telepathic. As soon as I thought it, I was whisked out of the dream, and I was in the side of my house where my vehicle's at, about 10 foot above the ground.
Oh, wow.
Now, it was in the winter. It was in the winter time, and it was cold outside. I knew it was. I could feel the air. It wasn't cold, but my peripheral vision was almost 360 degrees. And I could feel myself laying in bed, and I felt myself outside. So you're in two places simultaneously. There's absolutely no question of whether you are, if you're out of body, you will know it. There's no question about it.
Right, yeah.
So I'm there, I'm taking in everything. I'm trying to, how far can I see? What do I really feel like? I was trying to go through all the stuff so that while I was there, I could input as much information as I could. And then I was trying to move my body back in bed, and there was, you can't do that. So I was just trying everything in that little bit of time. It was probably a couple minutes. And then I was whisked back into my body, fully conscious still, remember everything. I started writing it all down. I'm like, right on. I've been successful in consciously having an out-of-body experience. Right on.
Absolutely.
So at that point, at that point, I started to think about it, and I thought, you know what? This is the same stuff I was having when I was a kid. I just didn't realize it because I didn't go through lucid dreaming or anything else. I would be laying in bed, maybe just like staring at the ceiling, because when we were kids, they made us take a nap in the afternoon. And I would just pretty much lay there most of the time, not tired, and I didn't want to sleep. So I would just, all of a sudden, I'd be laying there. The next thing I know, my nose is like right next to the ceiling, and it kind of freaked me out. And then I was all of a sudden whisked back in bed. Yeah. And things of that nature would happen, and that's what was going on. I was separating, not even knowing it.
Right.
So at that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to continue on with this. This is obvious. I'm obviously successful in it, and I'm going to keep going. So what I did was I decided that I'm going to follow this lucid dreaming, and that's going to be my go-to. So what I did was I just stepped it up. I started checking myself more and more during the day. I set my alarms. I was probably doing 12, 15 times a day, asking myself, because I figure, okay, if I can get my body into the methodology of constantly asking and questioning myself, then I will be more successful. And it took a couple of months. I kept trying, and I'm like going, damn, one successful time should really get me in there. So the very next time was a couple months later, and I was lucid in a dream, and I go, I want to have an out-of-body experience. And the first thing that happened, before I even got that full thought out, I'm back in bed. I'm laying on my side, my eyes are closed, and I see this oval shape with the black background. Now, the oval shape that I'm seeing is an aerial view of a city by the water. Now, the actual portal, that was a portal. The actual shape looked like it had been punched through the black background of when you close your eyes. But then around the outside of that oval shape was a border. I don't know, maybe like 3 inches wide. I'm just going to say that.
When you saw it, was it just like a solid oval shape, or did you notice immediately it was like a city or something?
Well, no. Now let me say this first. When I said when I was in the out-of-body experience, you're utilizing your third eye, okay? This vision is the same peripheral type vision. Now, when I came out of that dream, I still had that same peripheral type vision. So what I'm seeing is really wide with my eyes closed. Now, imagine you're seeing maybe something that's, I don't know, maybe like 100 feet wide.
Right. Okay.
And then in the middle of that 100 feet wide, there is an oval shape in the middle. And it looks like that oval shape was punched through that black background. It almost looked like it had been, like you punched through a piece of metal and there's all kind of a shrapnel and everything.
Yeah.
It looked like that. But around the outside of that, there was like an oval bracket or like a frame that same shape as the portal. And it had a bunch of writing in it. Like it was a description of whatever that city was or whatever. And the writings were hieroglyphical. They looked kind of like the old Hawaiian written language, and it had three-dimensional shapes in it. So it was something that didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. So I'm trying to absorb all this that I can, and I know it's a live viewing because I can see the water moving. So it was almost like somebody had put a camera somewhere and was showing me from this higher elevation down at maybe a 45-degree angle at the city with the water. So I'm trying to figure out what this writing is. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And then it lasts about 35, maybe 40 seconds. And then it slowly fades away. It pixelates and then fades away. So I open my eyes because I was fully conscious, and I write down what I saw. Now, I don't have a photographic memory, so I can't recall those letters and that wording because I don't know it. It wasn't anything that was familiar to me. So I wrote down everything that I experienced and I felt from that experience, and I called it a viewing because I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of anything. This is the early 90s, okay? So I'm guessing on what it is. I'm not sure that I'm ever going to experience it again, so I just make the best of it and write all this down. Now, my focal point was still astral projection.
Right.
So I kept trying. But after that point, every time that I would become lucid in a dream, I wouldn't even get the chance to think I want to have an out-of-body experience. I'm pulled back into bed, and I have a portal in front of me. Now, this has been happening for over 30 years now. And what happened, the first couple times, it was an oval shape with the black background. And then eventually, after the first few times, it took up my whole peripheral vision. So it was no longer an oval shape. It was now my whole vision. Just like if you're in the astral. I mean, it's super wide. So if you're laying there, it looks like you're sitting in front of a 200-inch TV right in front of your face.
But you didn't
there.
You didn't ask for this stuff to happen, right?
No.
Like it just started happening.
I never even heard about it. So there was an author, a local author in town, that had written a book, and it was related to the astral and the mental planes. I messaged him and I said, hey, do you have any idea what's going on? I mean, the only people that I could think to ask are people that have already been in these locations, so they have an idea. And he didn't have any idea. And over the years, I've looked things up, but I've come to the conclusion that if there is somebody else, there's probably not many. But I've just come to the conclusion that I have to come up with my own answers myself.
Yeah.
Now, as I go along, I get to see two-dimensional worlds. I get to see other beings, and it looks like in other time frames. Now, when I'm talking other time frames, like maybe in the medieval times, I get to see local current times. And then eventually it started going in other directions where I was seeing things, but I really couldn't explain why I was seeing them. And it took me about 3 years to understand that I was seeing through the eyes of other people.
Really? That's trippy.
And
man.
so that started to progress. And I just find myself in these situations where I spend the first 5 or 6 seconds trying to understand where I'm at and what's happening. Because it's like taking a handful of rocks and just throwing them off a building, and wherever one of them lands, that's where I'm at. So I just keep documenting everything, and I just keep thinking about it. And over the years, I was in my 20s. I had a family. I was going to school. I had a new career. So these things tend to take a back seat when you're really busy in life.
Sure, yeah.
So I just kept going along with it, writing stuff down, and eventually I got to the point where I said I have to become somewhat focused on this if I want to get anywhere with it. So about maybe 15 years ago, and I had an hour to hour and a half commute each way to work, and I was doing a lot of daydreaming because there's not really much to see in traffic. So I discovered that there was something in the daydream state while we're daydreaming. There's something there that I noticed, and I wanted to figure it out. So it took me, I would say, off and on about a year to figure out what was going on. What happens is when we're daydreaming, it's very close to the same mental state or brainwave state that we have while we're actually dreaming. So that's why it's called a daydream. It's still a dream.
But were you driving on the road or something when you were doing this, or?
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm thinking that's what would happen to me, because I daydream when I'm out on the highway sometimes.
Most of the time, like especially in the summertime, the time I got off of work, you're sitting on the highway. You're not going anywhere. You move ahead 3 inches or 5 feet, and then you stop. So, I'm in and out of, of this consciousness. And then once I started really studying, I had to do it when I was at home. But that's where I realized there was something there. There was information being passed along to me, but I couldn't recall anything. I knew something was occurring, but I couldn't remember anything. So what I ended up discovering is that as humans, because let me go back to this. We're all spiritual beings in a human body. So we're actually spiritual beings before anything else. And we're basically in a three-dimensional prison. That's where we're at. That's the bottom line. So let me go to this point. Subconsciously, when we're daydreaming or when we're dreaming, our subconscious is going there. So if you're dreaming, your subconscious is with your astral body, you're projecting, and when you come back, you're going to get some information, but it's not really very well understood. Well, the same thing's happening when you have a daydream. But what happens is when you're in a daydream and you're bringing that information back, you go through a veil, and that veil is very well insulated. It's actually corrosive. It's like bringing a hard drive through a magnetic field. It erases all the data off there, which is what your consciousness actually goes through when you're doing this. So I determine there's something going on. So I take the time and I figure out how to get myself in the same brainwave activity as I do, similar to a lucid dream. And then I daydream into this connection is what I call it, which I ended up finding is also a portal connection. So all of us utilize these on a daily basis when we daydream, but our subconsciousness is not bringing back the information. So what I did was I did it over and over and over till I got to the point where I could project my conscious into that situation, take that information and bring it back successfully and write it down.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. That is crazy, man.
Let me put it this way too. We all have three bodies. We have a physical body on the physical plane on Earth. We have an astral body or spirit body on the astral plane. And we also have a soul, which is on the mental plane. Now, each of the bodies lives on that plane simultaneously. So you're living in three different places simultaneously. And the only thing that happens when you have a conscious astral projection is your spirit body will detach into the astral, but you will bring your consciousness along with it. Once all you're doing is projecting your conscious mind into that spirit body so that you can become aware of what's happening. So that's all it is. It's not you detaching, because it detaches when you're dreaming all the time by itself. It's you moving your consciousness to that point. So
where did these, so you figured out how to move consciously through certain things, right? But right. Where did these portals take you? Like, do they take you places, or are they just saying, or are they just opening up saying like, hey, I'm here if you want to access this thing, Well,
I came to the conclusion that I'm getting these portal experiences. Now, when I started having these, it didn't take me long to figure out that these are initiated by a third party. I don't know who the third party is. I never found out, because once I had been having these portals for maybe 15 years, I started initiating them on my own. And I do believe the whole purpose behind this was to show me that there are different life forms, much different from ours, and then to get me to the point where I could initiate these myself. Because once you've experienced something so many times over and over, you can reproduce the brain waves in order for that to become a reality for you, in order to make those connections yourself. So what this was just an over and over and over exposure to get me prepared in order to make these, to understand what happens. Because I'm a technical person. I've worked in the technical field for 40 years. And for me, I need to understand how things work, how to manipulate things, how to fix them. I just have to understand things. And the only way to do that, for me, the best way, is to show me how it works. But this third party doesn't explain anything to me. They never spoke to me. They've sent me information like in the portals with the writing. They've also sent paperwork in those portals that I've seen, but it's all in this foreign writing. I don't have any idea what it is. So obviously they speak some other language, and I have no concept of what it is. But what they're doing is basically training me to do this, and that's what I've done. And I didn't tell anybody until last year. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and the only people that knew was maybe my wife and my children, and they didn't really take an interest in it. So for me, I wanted to figure out how to do this and duplicate the whole process. And I have found that other beings in other dimensions utilize portals the same way we use a cell phone. Portals can be used for direct communication between two sources or are directed from a third source. They can be used for travel, and they can be used for other things as well. And this is something that I think probably medicine men and things have accessed in the past to communicate with other beings, because it's, once you know how to utilize it, it's very easy to make a connection, but sometimes you don't really know where you're going to connect to, and you find out pretty quickly.
Man, so did you end up going through, like, this is the trippiest thing because you listen to Robert Monroe's or read Robert Monroe's books, right? So a lot of trippy things happened to him too, right? But once you saw these portals, were you not scared? Like, man, I don't know if I should go through them. Did you feel anything when you saw them, or were you just? Well,
generally, I don't go through the portals. They're used as a communication. So let me put it this way. When I have a portal connection, the nightly portals, usually I'm right there. So you feel like you're in the midst of wherever you're looking at.
Gotcha.
There's a connection. There's an energy connection. Then when I make what I call the glimpses, which is what I discovered about 15 years ago that I can do in the daytime, doesn't have to do with the dream state. Those are a connection as if you were sitting in a room or sitting right next to this other being, and they're communicating with you, just as if you're right there. Yet, when I'm having this experience, I also know where I'm at. I'm still in that room, sitting in the chair, but I also know that I'm there at that point as well. But I can control it. I can cut it off at any moment, and there's been communication back and forth, and it's all telepathic. But at one point, I got to the point where I was told to repeat something many times in order to remember it. And I was actually physically speaking. I can get up and walk around if I wanted to during these things, but it's harder to keep the connection if you're physically doing something. It's best to be sitting down and mentally focused, because it takes about 150% of your focus once you've made the connection to stay connected and remember and retain everything.
Wow. But you still don't know to this day, or do you, where these messages are coming from?
No, actually, I don't. I have no idea. Wow. And I think there's a purpose behind that.
That brings up a lot of questions, man, because if you don't know where they're coming from, obviously people are going to say, well, it could be aliens, it could be the government, it could be your mind, it could be... I don't see how it could be your mind, though. Like, if you're... Because these symbols are coming from places.
I question this. No, see, for me, and I tell everybody this all the time, question everything. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody.
Yeah.
What I tell everybody is the only way that you can know truth is through your own personal experiences.
That's it. Yep.
Now, if I had one or two of these, then I would not really have a cup to hold it. But realistically, in the past 30 years, I've probably had close to 1,000 of these, and I can control how I make the connection. And I know an out-of-body experience, and that there's no way you can prove that you had an out-of-body experience with somebody.
No.
Because it's no different. If I was the only person in the world that dreamed, how could I prove to you that I actually dream? You'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody does that.
Yeah, I know Monroe tried to do it like by affecting physical things, and he tried a couple of things, but there really isn't. Even in the Monroe Institute, if you listen to all of the Gateway Explorer stuff, there's some pretty revealing evidence that, man, they definitely had an out-of-body experience, but it never 100% definitively like proves that they had one, you know?
Well, and the whole thing is you're trying to prove something that's spiritual in a physical world.
Right.
And so to me, it's not about proof. It's about understanding. It's about manipulation. It's about getting the whole picture. And so with all these experiences, I go there, I bring information. A lot of the information is generalized information. Some of it had to do with me, and some of it was just like, this doesn't really make much sense to me. But what I did discover is when you are consciously going somewhere, say whether it's the astral or somewhere else, and you're in a localized area, those beings are going to flock to you. And they're going to flock to you like a tourist guide would be at the pyramids.
Yeah.
They're all going to want to sell you their service. Now, if you buy into it, then they're going to lead you everywhere. And they're going to be the ones to tell you everything. So what happened was I'm going on there, and several times, not long after I began doing this, I was told, there's a way that we can keep those portals open, and we can show you how. And I said, oh no, that's a red flag right there, man. That tells me there's manipulation going on here. So I said, no, thank you. Didn't take any interest. And slowly as time went on, they weren't hanging around me like they were before. Now, let me give you an example based upon what happens when you go to these places and you're being told all this information. People buy into it without questioning anything. Now, misinformation means there's a little bit of truth, just enough to sell you on the point, but the rest of it is bullshit.
Yeah, that's manipulation 101. Yeah. Every
being everywhere, it doesn't matter where they're at, has their own agenda. Mm-hmm. You have to remember that. Doesn't matter if you're on the astral. Doesn't matter if you're in another galaxy or another dimension. Everyone has their own agenda. You don't know what it is. When you go on their playing field, they are going to manipulate you. They're going to manipulate how they look. They can make themselves look like anything to make you feel more comfortable. So in my case, a lot of times it was a human image. I knew it wasn't a human, but they made the human image so that I would be comfortable talking to them. I would trust them. And then the background would most likely be like a town that I would recognize. So it was all about me feeling comfortable. The other thing is that people don't understand is there's a whole record system, like, the Akashic records. These beings have a connection with those records because it's 24/7 video, audio, everything about us is in those records, and they have access to it. So they know everything about you before you even get there. So whatever you want to hear, they're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. So when people leave Earth because they want to get away to somewhere that's free and spiritual and stuff, and they go to the astral, what you're doing is you're leaving Gen Pop prison and you're going into the prison yard. You're still in the prison. You're just going into the yard. And the beings that work on the astral all work for the warden. You're not getting anywhere. You're not freeing yourself at all. And if you buy into their bullshit, then what you're going to do is you're going to just keeping their agenda going. Because what we're experiencing here on Earth is just another level of what's going on in the astral. They are created for damage control. All the people that escape Earth, they are there to manipulate those people into following them and only believing what they are told, so they don't learn anything more than they would learn on Earth. Because
so we keep recycling or something.
Put it this way: with all the psychics and all the people that have spirit guides and all the angels and everything, why do we have 460,000 children missing every year in the United States?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know exactly what you're saying.
We had 100 politicians missing every year. Shut the country down. We can't have this, but we can have all these children missing. There's a lot of things going on. So if they were really helping us, then we would be finding these kids and they wouldn't be having this problem. So we have to look at things realistically and understand that the manipulation is a multi-level manipulation on us. So it's good to look, it's good to find truth, but you need to experience it on your own. Right. And that's why when I go and explore, I'm going there, I don't make any judgment calls. I don't think about anything other than getting the information, bringing it back, documenting, and at that point, I start to determine what there is there, and also apply that to what I've experienced in the past. And sometimes it might be years before I can put that information together and be able to correlate it into something that really works. But everything that I've experienced personally is what I base my opinions on and what I base what's happening on.
Yeah, so I study the out of body stuff, but also study the, Hermetic mystery schools and stuff too. And these guys in the mystery schools say it more than, the out of body travelers do, that the astral realm is full of deceptive beings, and it's full of all kinds of things that are deceptive. So they developed ways to test the beings and all this stuff because they knew it was a massive world of illusions, So yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and it's as with anybody, you wouldn't trust somebody off the street to just come up and give you a bunch of information, And most likely, like when I communicate with these beings, what they tell me, I really don't pay much attention to it. I mean, I'll document everything, but there's not going to be any groundbreaking like things like, oh yeah, we're going to come save you guys, and this is how we can help. You can help yourselves. No. If anybody believes that anybody is going to come here and save us, they're in the wrong world, because that's not going to happen. The only people that are going to save us, or the only beings that are going to save us, are ourselves. And the only way we're going to get to that point is by understanding and realizing that we have the potential to help ourselves. We have the potential to overpower anything that comes our way. Since we are spiritual beings, we don't need to rely on technology. We don't need to rely on all this stuff. We've been convinced that because we've been programmed to understand that.
Yeah.
So we have the potential as spiritual beings. We are creators, but we are creators trapped within a prison. In order for us to be manipulated, first we need to be confined to a low vibrational human body, which is one. And then we need to be separated from our source. And then we need to be highly insulated from our source. And one thing that I remember you in one of your podcasts, you had mentioned about the blocks. Why are we being blocked?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Or like when you try to have an out-of-body experience, a lot of times you get blocked and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I got shoved back in my body, and I did peel myself out of body. I mean, I got, what you were trying to do at first, I did it. It took me forever, but I did it. And then I tried to keep doing it again, and just weird, like one time I was blind, one time things were fuzzy, and another time I got halfway out. And I said this thing. I said, release me by life and light. I command you to release me by life and light, is what I said. And I don't even know where the hell that voice came from. And it wasn't my voice, but it came out of me. And these little Rorschach looking figures or whatever. They just, I mean, in a matter of a millisecond, just came down and just shoved me right back in my body. It was crazy. It was really crazy.
Well, let me give you a description of what we're up against, just in general. This is our situation in Earth, and I wrote this in my last book. It says we are all currently suspended within a multi-layered, heavily insulated, and cryptically manipulated existence that monopolizes our collective for the benefit of a self-serving parasitic race. That's where we're at. We are going up against high levels of manipulation, multi-levels of it, as well as technology. In order to keep us down, in order to keep us under control, they have to keep us thinking that we're only human beings, that we're not spiritual beings. They want to get rid of all the information that has to do with spirituality, and they want us to believe that everything that matters is here on Earth. All the drama that happens in your life, they try to keep you
material
overwhelmed.
Focused, yeah.
Keep you overwhelmed with it. When in reality, we have the ability to create universes for ourselves. But the insulation and all of the vibrational strategies make it more difficult for us to connect with our source. But the problem is, now you said, you feel like you're being blocked and stuff like that.
Well,
the only way you can get
when I
past
started manifesting things into my life, like I really stepped into what you're talking about, right? And without being afraid, and things started manifesting in my life like crazy. But we all get to a point, I think, where when we start manifesting stuff, that we come up to this place where we're not, I don't know, but for me, things started getting so good that you start to question it. And I think there's something about fear or something that when it comes in, other things start trying to block your manifestation, so to speak, right? And then there's like a war going on for just how creative are you, and then people come out and start questioning you and all kinds of different things, right? And it wasn't that way at first. First you were inspiring people, but once you really start manifesting, then the dark crap comes out, and it's weird.
I say adapt and persevere. Do not let anything, anytime, for any reason, get in your way. Yeah. You are the bulldozer and they are the traffic cones. What I have found is all these years, I haven't had anybody to talk to. I haven't had anybody to ask. And you talk about levels of frustration. I was beyond that. And I still get frustrated and it's still difficult. But then again, I'm the type of person that once I set my mind to it, I have the drive to push me through anything. Even if I feel at times that I'm not really pushing forward, as long as I still remain focused on that, I will not let anything get in my way. Now, when you bring up what I call the dark ones, they will be there. They are here. And what I have found is, and when I was a kid, I had a lot of really bad nightmares. Yeah. Didn't have them for many years. And they started about, 10, 12 years ago. They started again. I said, you got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. So every time they would start to come into my dream, it would pixelate and it would be black. And it was a darkness that absorbs light. So you can't see through it. So it would start to it would be like a normal dream, and all of a sudden it starts to darken, and I know what's going on. I'm pulled out of the dream. There's a portal. So it was happening every time I'm pulled into a portal. Finally, I got desensitized to the point where it didn't bother me anymore. I'm like, screw this. I'm going to figure out what this is. So I got to a point where it was me and someone else sitting at the table in my dream. And at that point, I became aware and I was lucid in that dream, and it started getting darker and darker. And finally, this figure walks to the other side of the table and grabs something that was mine in the dream from the table, and I smashed the other one. And I said, it doesn't matter. So I went up and I stood to him face to face. And as the closer I got, the more light was absorbed and I could not see anything. It was like standing in front of a black wall in the dark. Mm-hmm. So I stood there. I was showing no fear. Do not show fear. Do not show any emotion other than let it know that it means absolutely nothing to you. It is not anything to be afraid of. Stand your ground. I turned my back on it and I walked away and I woke up. What happened after that was I was pulled out of that into another portal. And this time it was in a room. It was almost looked like a room and the walls kind of looked like it might have been in like a dungeon or something like that. But there was a three-dimensional image that was kind of floating in like a couple feet off the ground, as if it was a three-dimensional screen, but there was no screen, there was no electronics, and it was showing me what that being looked like. And it showed me a reptilian being with 2 legs and 2 arms. Well, not one time in my life I had ever believed or seen or anything, any reptilian images or anything of that nature, because I had never experienced them. And the only reason I would even give any weight to that is the fact that I'd never been lied to in these portals before. And I knew there was something behind it. It just wasn't showing me what it really looked like. So I believe that's probably what it was. But it was, like I said, they can make any images that they want to appear as when you're on their plane, which is on the astral plane. So I wasn't surprised when I saw that it wasn't that. They leave it up to your imagination to hopefully, pull up the worst fearing thing you could imagine by showing you just the darkness, and then you would just go off from there. But it didn't affect me.
So just a question. A lot of this stuff, I think, comes from our unconscious, right? I'm not saying that it's not real at all. But as a matter of fact, I sometimes wonder if it's more real than what we're dealing with here. But the thing is if I look at Thomas Campbell's explorations or William Buellman's or Robert Monroe's, it seems like everybody's out-of-body experiences are quite different, right? And I'm not saying that all of these guys did run up against boundaries and certain things and beings like that, but it seems like, could it be, and I'm only asking this, could it be the fact that our beliefs are creating some of this stuff, or maybe our beliefs are revealing more of this stuff? Because, there are people that have traveled out of body for years and years and wrote tons of books on it, like Monroe's one of them, William Buellman's another one. And I'm not finding parallels with this stuff other than the initial experiences of the out-of-body states, right? Or what happens when we go out of body and some of the blocks that happened, And like William would say, things like you just have to command your way through if there's certain blocks. But he never would talk about, I don't think he ever talked about portals or reptilians or anything like that. So I'm just wondering, like, do you think it only affects certain people, or is it just an awareness thing, or how is all that working?
Okay. All right. Let me say that. And I realized this back in the 80s. You're going to have people that are manipulating whatever they're writing, and it's for a reason. Okay. Mm-hmm. Just the same way as when you run into manipulation in the astral. It's the same way on here on Earth. You have corruption, you have manipulation. Now, we are manipulated on Earth all the time. So why would you think that it couldn't happen in there? The metaphysical field in itself has been manipulated for decades. Now, when I first started this whole out-of-body thing, I would read a book. Oh, they have astral sex. You have all this stuff. That's all BS. For somebody to even write that, and they published it. And so what I do is I find people and I listen to what they have to say based upon, the information that they present. Mm-hmm. And I have to make a judgment call because I can see if things are, relevant or they're not. I have to look at things based on relevancy. Now, when I have an experience in a dream and I'm dreaming, that's one thing. But when I'm consciously aware, because I'm consciously there, then the manipulation is much different. So at that point when you're consciously aware, yeah, I can say that that maybe if you've got all these fears, you might be manifesting something on that plane, but that's not the problem. I don't have fear of it. I'm not projecting that. And once you have a good grasp of how you're thinking and feeling, then you understand when you run up against something, it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit. So if I was going into if I was having this fear-based issue, when I go into meet these other beings, then I would probably be seeing dragons or
like
bats
Monroe
or whatever.
would say,
I don't
people thought he was the devil,
I don't project it. So what happens is I've been doing this for so long that what I have to do is, when I'm consciously there, my focus 100% is on the experience.
Right.
I don't think of anything other than my focus on what is happening in front of me, what is happening around me, and what is the information so that I can retain it and bring it back. That's my only goal, to share that information and to understand how this works. So I'm not bringing all this baggage with me, and I've been doing it for so long that if there was a pattern of that nature, I would have picked it up a long time ago.
Yeah,
I was never scared of anything.
Sure, I'm not necessarily talking about your
I know
fear.
what you're saying.
I'm just saying, like, there's like two camps in this thing. I haven't found an in between yet. So there's people that are saying, look, you're only consciously trapped here because you're consciously trapped here because you haven't woke up yet. And then there's this other camp that's saying, well, you're being manipulated and imprisoned on purpose, right? Like, this is what I'm getting at here. We can all be warriors and not afraid of stuff, or even like you say, like you just said, when Thomas Campbell, when he goes into the astral realm, he doesn't give into his emotions or his thoughts or his belief. He just simply observes, and that's all he does, because it keeps him there longer when you do that, right? So
okay, let me ask you this question. What do you think? What do you think personally? And try to back it up with some experiences so that you have a better understanding of what your thoughts are on that.
What do I think personally? Well, based on my experience, I think at least half of what you experience in your life is your own beliefs. Also, and the other,
your own experience.
Yeah, your own experiences. The other half, is there real manipulation going on out there? Absolutely. Everywhere you go, there's manipulation and agendas going on. I used to live in this world of, oh my God, it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart, it breaks my heart, But at this point, it's like, well, if whether you're human or some out of body being or whatever, if you want to be a manipulative person, right, then or being or whatever, that's your thing. I'm only looking for like authenticity, right? So, but what you're saying, like, I do experience manipulation everywhere I go. I'm just not as angry at it as I used to be. I've reached my peak of anger about it, Right.
Well, then what I'm trying to portray is, obviously, we're all manipulation. We have a high level of corruption around us. Now,
sure, yeah.
So we all have a good idea on where this world is going, and the way for us to be able to conserve our freedoms. To me, the conservation of freedom of individuality, is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
We should all have the rights to be free and do whatever we choose to do as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. That's a pretty simple way to look at life. So when I look at things and I understand and I can see what's happening, there's a high level of manipulation that's creating this. And I've seen a lot of what happens that we have the ability to do. So when I look at it, I think, okay, yeah, we're being stunted, we're doing this. And I've read a ton of stuff on yoga. I've read a lot of metaphysical stuff. Over the years, I've just had a ton of information. And I can see holes in a lot of it. And anything, even the religious backing, a lot of that came down and is filtered through, and it's changed over the years. So we don't even know our own history. The reality, we don't even know what it is.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So everything we get has been regurgitated. And we've been programmed so that usually what's happening is the mass of people is under a belief system that is totally incorrect. But since the majority believe it, if you're a minority in the system, then you're either ridiculed or you're not believed.
Yeah.
To me, I'm not looking at good or bad. I'm looking at real truth. That's what matters. Because
which I'm with you. You can't get to that without through your own experience is the only thing that's going to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Right. Your perception and your perspective. And that's why I tell everybody, question everything. And then you need to experience it for yourself. Now, not everybody's going to have the same experiences, but we all have this level of ability that we can tap and we can access. But the only way you're going to find it is to look within. Now, I'm not saying look within and ask somebody else, a guide or whatever. Look within. It is there. You will get answers, but you might not like the answers that you get.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, I have no doubts that I see what you're saying. Like, something had to be manipulated. You have to have, in order to create an illusion or a belief or a perception to begin with, you have to have some form of manipulation, for sure. And that's compacted here big time. In the Western mysteries, and I'm not talking about all of them. I'm just saying specifically, like the Kabbalists teach that the Earth, and it kind of corresponds with what you said, is that the Earth is just a subset of the astral realm. It's like a I'm trying to think of a cul-de-sac, basically a denser cul-de-sac of what's actually in the astral realm and coming down into dense form. But then again, if that were the case, we can't perceive all this stuff that you're seeing or that I've experienced in our human body. So we kind of have to go out of our body to perceive some other things, right? So, yeah.
Right. I mean, if this is available, and since it is available, why is it being hidden? Why is it being so controlled? Why is it being so covered up? So if you're the last thing I want for people is for them not to be able to experience it for themselves. Because if you run into misinformation, it's only going to put you off on another path that's going to waste how much time in your life. So getting information out to people on a truthful basis is more difficult than it looks or what it seems. I offer my information for free. People can listen to it. They can make their own judgment calls. And at that point, they can determine whether they like it or not. That's up to them. I'm not forcing anything on it. I don't have any sponsors. I don't answer to anybody. It's myself. But if you care about your family, yourself, and future generations, then we all need to stand up, just like our past generations did for us. And I'm not saying grab a gun. I'm saying become aware of what's inside of you.
Yeah, that's what you do. You look at stuff exactly the way I do. I think if we were, less afraid to explore ourselves consciously and authentically, we could change things. But there's so much focus on how to change things materially when there's so much deception in the material world. You're not going to do that. You have to change your awareness first.
Right. Well, I bring it up. Both of the books that I wrote are real short, like 25 pages. I made them super short. I wanted to just put the information in there and get it to the people. Now, what we have to do is we have to separate ourselves from the game. It's the drama. It's all the BS that we deal with on a daily basis. If we step back and understand, once you step out of your comfort zone, then you will begin to see what's really happening. But when you're too focused on the political, opponents and all this other stuff, that's the whole purpose of getting you in the game and keeping you there, because what they keep doing is moving the shiny object. There's another shiny object over here. Oh no, focus over here. There's a war over here. They're stealing money over here. They're doing this over here. It's all to keep you completely enthralled in their game. You have to step out of it to realize what you're capable of. And what I mean capable of, you're capable of no fear. You're capable of understanding that it's a game. Once you understand that it's a game, you're like, why would I fear this? This is a total joke. I don't even know why I bought into it in the first place. But it's so psychologically strong that it keeps sucking you back in like a giant vacuum. It's going to suck you right back into the crap, because something's going to happen. You get sucked back into it.
Fear is what kills it.
Fear is our motivation. So what happens is we want to be independent, but we're dependent on food and shelter and cars and gas and all that kind of stuff. Once we're dependent on other things, that's why we're in the physical, then we're not independent. So the more dependencies we have, the less independence we will experience. Once we can step away and say, okay, what really matters in my life? It's myself, my spouse, my children, and their children, and future generations. You know, at that point, you understand in life what really matters.
Right.
Everything else is just noise when it comes down to it. Because if we do lose our freedom, you won't have any of that stuff anyways. It'll all disappear, and you'll be under. And once you lose something, it's very difficult to get it back.
Maybe I could ask you this question, and then we'll have to take the break at the top of the hour here. But maybe I could ask you this. You know, I'm trying to explain to people what you're trying to explain to them, but it's hard to explain to people, well, how the hell is like getting out of body or having lucid dreams and all this other stuff going to change things in my practical world, right? People ask me that all the time, and I have the hardest time explaining it to them. And I think maybe the answer is, and you could probably help me with this, is, well, once you experience that stuff, then it's one thing to talk about the game, right? But then you actually experience the game. It's a whole new awareness when you experience something rather than just talking about it, you know.
And that's why I always say it's your experiences that set your perception and everything else. So if you're intrigued by out-of-body experiences and you're finally successful in it, then at that point, nobody can take you away. You can't unlearn what you've seen, and you can't learn what you haven't seen. So what you'll do is you'll get to the point where you'll say, wow, I am really more. I understand that I'm more than just this meat-filled body walking around Earth. You know, I'm way more than that. What more is there? Well, there's a lot more out there. The more that I learn and the more that I experience, I realize it's just a tiny bit. I'm scratching the surface because there's so much out there. And it's an uphill climb. It's an uphill battle, and it's aggravating. But once you set your mind to do something and you decide, I am not letting anything in my way, I'm going to succeed. And that's what we have to do when it comes down to what we're dealing with on Earth.
Sure.
There's a small amount of people that are enacting laws and rules and everything to take our rights away. Now, the only way that they can make this work is if we assist in it. Because if you think about it, every one of us does every job on this whole entire Earth. And it's only the top management that's causing the problem. But if we don't follow we don't follow the rules, or we don't follow their orders, then nothing happens.
Right.
We don't want to take away our own freedoms. So why would we allow them to do it to us? It's not them doing it. It's us doing it. So we have to understand where we are at, and we have to understand the power that we have. And once you begin to understand what you are capable of, then you will become feared by the ones that are causing this whole thing, because they will understand that you are walking away from their game. You're not going to follow the rules because you have your own moral compass, and you're not going to step aside and not do things and do things against what your morals are. Everybody has a moral compass, and that's what you set to limit yourself to you won't allow anything to happen or to do anything away from that moral compass, because that's what you have inherently.
And you'll get tested on it too. I've noticed that, like, I got to a point of understanding this in manifestation in my life, and good things started coming into my life, but some of those good things were a bit manipulative, right? and they started testing my moral objectivity, right? Like, well, is that really this or this really that? Is that really a sacred thing to you? And it's all perspective. And then you get to where you're in your mind and you're like, I don't know what's what. And now your mind's playing tricks on you because you didn't follow your spirit or your heart or your soul or that thing that you told yourself, I'm not letting anything get in my way. This is what I want, right? Like you understand what I'm saying? And then they know how to play with your mind.
But you need to know your limitations when it comes down to what you're willing to do and what you're willing to do, what you're willing to allow others to do to you. It's like being in an abusive relationship. After you've been in that abusive relationship for years or decades, you don't want to see it and you don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, you want nothing to do with it.
If something happens and you're out of that abusive relationship, you're like, why in the hell would I ever put up with that? I'm out of it now. I can see what other people saw and I wouldn't listen to them. And so I'm walked away from that abusive relationship, and now I feel like a new person. Now I know I had the power, but while I was in it and while I was under the spell, I couldn't do anything about it. Yeah. I wouldn't allow myself.
Right. Exactly. All right. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. And stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We got more to talk about here with Mike.
Sedatans. It leads men astray into the serpent's machinations. With strictures and cave wall flicks to hypnotize, I eat my daily tripe with bare hands, it's undignified. The mantra on the cloven tongue of mammoths like nails on a chalkboard inside the stomach of a white whale. Eyes popping out the sockets, watching profits line pockets, and the price of bought and sold souls skyrocket. Walk a road, rob with skulls, not with gold, fraught with signs, roadblocks, and obstacles that defy logic. Life's a package deal. You take the beautiful days with dark nights and dance with Maya in the starlight, it's alright. We wax and we wane. There's wildflowers growing from the cracks in my brain. Dry your eyes, revitalize.
By Beech Nuts Mashed and Strained Chewing Tobacco for babies who just can't wait to grow up to be cowboys.
Bumper stickers are a fun side hustle with low-cost investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm, or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Remember, if for any reason you must leave your radio, please have the man at the door stamp your ear so you can listen again later.
You're listening to Lighting the Void
We are back with Mike Martin, author of My Dark Explorations, Portals, Gateways, and Astral. And talk about your other book that you wrote too, because that's where we left off, was kind of like this authenticity, freedom mentality. You wrote a book kind of about that too, right? That just released?
Yeah, the Spiritualist manifesto, A Guide to Freedom. And what I did was I just kind of went through and briefly just explained some of my experiences, how it came about, and the fact that what I found, and how people can basically get themselves free from the daily manipulation of the game, was what I call it.
Right.
And then I also list some ways that they can look at things and how they can understand and experience, and really get people to understand that they have so much available to them when they begin to step out of what they think is their real life. You know, I see ourselves as like a driver, and our physical body is like a car. You know, you're not the car, you're the driver. And you're the one that's leading yourself through all this. So everybody seems to fixate on their body when it's not really the you that you think you are. You know, you're the inside. And your consciousness is the one that you're moving from place to place in order to make these connections. And that's what I use it for. So, yeah, and your other bodies are there, and you can utilize those as well. But in order to find truth, it's not just about getting yourself out of body, or not just about, connecting with other places. It's about understanding where you're at, your real you. And once you begin to make that connection, then you can see that we have an energy field and we have energy available. Now, when I make these portal connections, if my energy level is low, which I didn't know anything about it before I started having these, then it's less likely that I'm going to have a clear or a long-term portal connection, because as I do it more and more, maybe have a couple days in a row, then my energy level will be a little bit depleted. And then if I wait a couple days, things will be back to normal, and it works out well. So we do have an energy level available, and it's most likely been stunted because of our low-level connection with our source. Now, when I say our source, you can look at it in any way you want, but it's an energy source. We're like small suns. We have our own energy, and now, spiritually speaking, I'm not talking about our physical bodies, but we're like a small sun. We have our own way of creating energy. We have our own energy source. But since we have this heavy insulated blanket over us full of radio waves and magnetic fields, it's really difficult for us to become who we are and see who we are. And that's the whole point behind it. You know, we've always been told, oh, you're on Earth so that you're going to learn, do this. That's BS. We're not here to learn. We're here to produce low-level vibrational fields, which are fed upon by a lot of the lower astral. A lot of the manipulation that we experience is within the astral level, and it works its way down to here, to Earth. So there's a lot of ways to manipulate people in order for that to happen. It's by, having them, manipulating them by their dependency on everything else. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And that's why people are getting manipulated and supporting this drive.
Usually it's like when people's, like you said earlier, when people's comfort level get messed with, or they're faced with the unknown or something like that, they just tend to back up and run away or hide or play. I'll go back and play the game. I don't want to go that far, Right. I mean, at some point, it's really it's exciting leaving your comfort level, because at first it's scary. People fear because they're doing that. Then they realize, hey, there's so much more out there that I'm not experiencing. I've just gotten into the monotony of following the same program over and over and over again. Then they start to realize, once you realize what your capabilities are, and I keep saying this because it's really true, and that's why I want people to step out of their comfort zone and to experience it for themselves, because that's the only way that you're going to know and understand what's really out there. Yeah, for sure. I think you and I think a lot on the same level. I think what breaks my heart the most is finding people that kind of understand that, as soon as, but I mean, then again, like a part of this journey is vibrating your vibration, I guess, and finding the people that are going to come to you because you are vibrating this kind of energy. I mean, you wouldn't have found this show if I wasn't vibrating that kind of energy or expressing it or creating it in a certain way. Like, so like, I am so, do you think there can be like an imbalance? Because I'm so less concerned about the material world than most people are. Because I do see the game, right? Like there's money, jobs, your health is important, but then there's like relationships and all this stuff is like, I do believe we can create our own reality. So why are we even worried about it? You know what I mean? Like, why are we scared of any of this stuff? That's the way I look at it. If something happens, we just create something different. We just adapt and adjust and move to a different thing. But,
at this point, a lot of times in the metaphysical world, they say, we're all one consciousness. Just do what you want. It'll all end up in the end. It'll all end up in the, a good in the end.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if I was going to say I was going to invade a country, I belong to some country or belong to some being world, and I'm going to take over a country.
Right.
The first thing that I would do is I'd infiltrate those people and tell them, you don't need to worry about anything. Just be peaceful, and
the universe will do it for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to make the most benign people that you can have, the ones that aren't going to get into conflict, and you're going to do that. So what we're being told, and what we're being told to believe, is garbage.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a new age psyop, honestly.
Well, yeah, it's been going on for years. And what they do is they just slowly keep feeding it. And then all the people that are playing along, well, of course, they're going to publicize them, and they're going to, they're going to be bestsellers or whatever. They're going to, they're going to go out in speeches and stuff. What you want to understand is just that where you stand in all of this. You can say, well, I really don't need to worry about it because, it's not real. Well, at some point it is real.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, if you are this spiritual being with a tremendous amount of power and energy, why would you keep putting yourself in this situation, or why would you not try to get yourself out of this situation?
Exactly.
I'm the type of guy that wants to know how it works and how it functions and why it does that way. And that's what brought me here. I knew as a kid that there was a lot of things that just didn't seem to didn't seem to equal out. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And as I get farther into it, I realize what it is, but I still don't understand the whole aspect of it. But I do know when I'm being bullshitted and when I'm not. Mm-hmm. And so the harder you work to try to help others understand and figure their own experiences out, the harder it is against you. And I've seen my own backlash, but I don't care, because I'm going to keep going, and that's just what I'm going to do, because I'm not asking anything from people. I'm just saying, apply yourself, find out for yourself. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want you to find yourself so that you can understand what's happening.
Yeah, that would be the one thing that I would do too. Like, it'd be like, so if we are these massively powerful beings, I would say that we are on it, to an extent in humanity. Like, I would tell them, well, just sit back and let the universe will provide everything. Or you hear things like divine timing or whatever, or just all kinds of crazy things I've heard in the New Age community, which causes people not to act or go after their heart, or listen to their hearts, or go after what they really want, or ask questions. Like you said, conflict avoidance. Conflict avoidance, to me, I mean, there are times when it needs to happen, but conflict avoidance first and foremost, before anything, is the worst thing for us consciously.
Right.
I'd rather be in a conflicted truth than a comfortable illusion all the time. I would rather be there,
Like I call this a psychological war, because what you're doing is they're busy convincing you what you can't do, and you need to understand what you can do. And here lies one of the points. We don't understand, globally, we don't understand our capabilities, but they do. They also understand that once we begin to realize our capabilities, then it's game over. If enough of us band together to combat this, then it's all over. But the problem with that is, if you have 85% of the population that is still under the spell of this, and 15% get them out of it, they're still going to go back to the same system, because people are they want to stay in the comfort zone, and they don't want to see anything that they don't want to see. So I don't call it waking up. I call it self-realization and spiritualization, because we are spirits. We aren't human. We never were human. We're just put here and placed in here, and we're trapped in here. If you wanted to run the best prison, you'd wipe everybody's memory before you put them in there, make them follow all these stupid rules, and they wouldn't know any better. That's the perfect prison.
Right. Yeah. Or I would tell people that, here's another thing too, back to the out of body stuff, right? I do, like, my mission is to get everybody out of body. The people that are interested in it, I want to help them, and I have helped them, right? I was given the gift of a voice. I can guide people to the vibratory state. I can help them relax. I can do all kinds of stuff. But there's all these, I'm just curious, all these people that say, well, what if it's immediately the fear. Well, what if someone enters my body when I get out of body? Or what if I meet a being, or demons this and demons that? And it's like, there is a massive fear barrier. People are very afraid of what they don't know, because I don't think they have the internal resources to face something, that they don't know about, right? Like, I'm not sure that, like, you and I could do that, but I think there are people that cannot. Like, they need to know everything first, and then kind of make up their mind if it's safe enough, right? And this is the problem to me, right? You've got to have some internal resources so you can get yourself out of any situation, whether you're in the body or out.
I suggest that, because there's everybody at some point in their life has stepped out of their comfort zone for one reason or another, whether it be a mother who's afraid of something, but she has to save her child, or somebody's had a problem and they need to help somebody else, and will step across that barrier in order to help them. Put yourself in the mindset that when you step across and do something that's different, or maybe a little bit uncomfortable, you're going to be learning from it. If this was some relatively dangerous feat, then you're not going to be able to do that. It's not going to flow through you. You're just not going to do it. And understand that life is not about fear. It's about understanding. You know, at one point people feared fire, I'm sure, until they understood how it worked.
Well, they probably feared the nighttime, like Manly P. Hall said. They feared the sun wasn't going to come up again, you know, or something.
Right. I mean, your car can be a dangerous weapon, but you don't fear it when you're driving it. You know, you understand how it works and you understand how to be cautious when you're driving. Anything can be fearful in life, but you need to look at it with the perspective that, okay, when I understand it, then I'm going to move ahead and forward. But don't always, first thing, focus on the fear. Focus on what you want to learn, what you want to experience. So, and don't always listen to everybody else. Just try it.
That's exactly right, man. Just experience it. If it is a thing, right? Like once we cross a massively uncomfortable barrier, and then we, like, for me, mine was like traveling alone, right? Going miles, thousands of miles away from my home and family, right? Alone, meeting new people, stuff like that. Like that was just crazy to me. Like, why would I do that? I'm safe. I could die out there and no one cares. And I did feel all these fears, right? Like when I left home, and this is probably stupid for people to travel all the time, but for me, it wasn't, you know? So when I experienced all that, I was like, wow, it gives you more of a confidence internally and spiritually too. So I think when you do go to face spiritual things, you can battle them, you know?
Right. I mean, we weren't meant to sit in one place and be stagnant. I mean, that's not what we're built for. Yeah. You know, we're built for experiences, and we're stunted here. You know, we're very limited in our specific bodies, but we're not about just sitting around letting other people do things for us and make decisions for us. Right. We need to make our own decisions. We need to run our own lives. It's not, if you're allowing somebody else to make your decisions and run your life, then you are living their life.
Yeah,
you're not living yours.
Yeah, it's sad when you love somebody too, right? You love, like, whether it's your children, your partner, whatever, and you love them, and you can tell that they can't make up their own minds for them. Sometimes they may act like they can think for themselves and make up their own minds, but if you watch what happens in their life once they get afraid or they don't know, it's better that someone else kind of leads the way, right? And here's the thing. If there's a fear, Mike, that I have, I'm afraid of those people, because to me, those people mess everything up, right? Because they don't have the ability to make a decision. You could make a wrong decision. It's okay. You can adapt if you make a wrong decision, but to sit in stagnancy and fear, or I don't know, someone tell me what to do kind of thing, right, is a very bad place. Even Robert Monroe said that in his books, in his first book. I don't know if you remember it, but he said the lowest energetic vibratorial place you can be is when this energy of, there's an energy that wants change, and then there's an energy that is afraid of change and doesn't want things to say this, wants things to stay the same. And these two energies meet. And if you look in physical reality, it's everywhere, right? These two energies meet. As long as a decision is made, energy can flow one way or the other. You can adapt later. But staying here and holding, things become chaotic. It's like a downward spiral. Think about the election when the two, like parties are fighting. People are killing each other during that time, or anything in life when these two energies come. I want change. I want things to stay the same. And it's not the decision that's negative. It's the stagnancy of not making the decision, right? That keeps us in low vibration. People
are afraid to make a mistake. A mistake is where you learn.
Yeah.
And when I didn't have any guidance, and I would run into situations where I said, I would rather be moving forward in the wrong direction than to stop and not do anything.
Yeah, me too, man. I can't.
And when you're going to have time. I thought about, what if it's the wrong side that's leading me? What if they're training me to do something foreign?
Well, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I figured, okay, well, then, and I went through times where I just was like questioning, everything. I had to come to a conclusion. Which way was I going to go? I'm this far into it. I'm not going to utilize that as my decision making, but I'm going to have to look. I have to reassess everything at this point. There was a couple instances that I ran into where I seriously had to stop and think, and it was months. I was months into it, and I had to go through every single instance to determine whether I was following my moral compass, whether I was doing what was right or what was wrong. And once I came to that conclusion, I had to put the rest out of my mind. I'd made a decision, and this is the way I'm going. And that was it. At that point, no turning back. You go on with because you're utilizing, when you make a decision, you have so much information available to you at that time, and you do the best you can with what you have available.
Right.
So you can't look back 2 years from now and say, well, I should have made a different decision. No, because you only had that information. 2 years later, you might have more information, but you couldn't have made that decision back then with that information because you never had it.
Sure.
So you have to do the best of what you can while you're at that certain point in life and move on.
And if you make a wrong decision, it's not like, let's say you make the wrong decision, that can still be fixed, right? Whether it's jobs, whatever you're doing, relationships, whatever. I've seen people make the wrong decision and fix it later, whatever, right? So that it's not even that's what my point is. It's not the decision that's the problem. It's the stagnancy. And, when he was doing these Explorer projects, he figured this out. Like, it even felt bad in his body when he would get to places or things and didn't know what to do or make a decision. And it was like the lowest vibration, and fear starts to set in and things get crazy, right? So I'm asking you, like, say someone goes out of body, and I think the out of body thing could be training us or vice versa to figure this out. I don't know. But say someone goes out of body and they witness something like a portal or a being or something that they're not familiar with. Well, the way to deal with that is you have to, not to freak out or anything, but you have to observe and make a decision, right? So do you think we're being trained for something higher, not like a learning ground, but more like, because that's what William Buhlman told me one time. He said, what better place to realize how consciousness works than a low density atmosphere of cause and effect that has a time release when you do a cause and then effect happens, right, later, versus the astral realm, cause and effect can happen instantly the moment you think about it, So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a plane that it's even more direct, and that's the mental plane, which is above the astral. I think there's 13 levels of the astral, and then the mental plane's above that, and that's where your soul travels.
Really? Okay.
So those are instantaneous. They're faster than you can imagine. When you're on the astral, you can potentially meet some of the things that you might manifest on there, based upon, if you got yourself to that point, and if you still got those issues, you're probably going to see them. But a lot of people that are really unstable when it comes to that, they probably won't make it there unless, on the average, because people have to work to get there. And if they're really afraid of it, then they might not even get to that point. But whatever you do when you get somewhere on the astral, you have to think about it as if you're in a foreign town and you don't know anybody. So any interaction you have is going to be just gather data. Look at it as if you're just a stranger in a town and you're going to see the sights and you want to experience it and enjoy yourself. Enjoy the ride. That's the mentality. Now, if somebody offers to, put you through a portal or something like that, I wouldn't do it, because you don't know, you've never built a relationship with this personality. So you have no background on them. And like I said, they know everything about you when you step out. So they're going to tell you and they're going to groom you. They want somebody that's going to follow them, and they figure if you're listening to them, then you won't be out looking for truth on your own. So they're going to bide all of your time and feed you information that's most likely useless, junk.
Sure.
Because they're just going to keep you occupied, and that's their whole. And most of those beings on there are autonomous. So they basically can take any shape, form, and do whatever they needed to do in order to to maintain that damage control that they're there for.
Do you think there's other collective agendas in the astral, or like all these different beings have their own little agendas, so to speak, whatever that may be?
I think most of the decision making process is based on the astral, and it filters down. And I do believe some of the beings are multi-level. They can work on the astral and they can work on the earth. I mean, that's the whole purpose behind it. They're multi-level. Now, when I say they work on multi-level, we see less than 1% of the visual spectrum on Earth. So there could be beings standing right next to you right now, and you'd have absolutely no idea that they were there.
Sure.
Now, when people say they wake up and they see beings, oh yeah, they're probably there. Because they have the ability to, you can see them at certain times when you're waking up. So, or even when you're in an astral dream or whatever, but they're there and you just can't see them. So they're probably moving within the different realms, because an astral plane is basically a plane superimposed over this plane. It's basically right on top of it. And so is the mental plane, but they're just layered on top of each other. They're in the same exact space. So, and even a lot of the dimensions, they're right here. They say, oh, we're going across space-time. Space and time are completely different when it comes down to away from the three-dimensional world. So we're dealing with something on a whole completely different level. So they could be walking around us right now. You'd have no concept of it. And there's a reason why we have this limited visual ability, because we can be manipulated. Like people are seeing, let me use Bigfoot for an example. I don't know this for a fact, but I can probably figure out that Bigfoot
yeah.
can control his visibility, or control moving within realms, or moving in and out of visual, because all of a sudden it disappears. Dogman, all these different things that you see, what's happening is they're able to switch between different realms. And they're doing that to keep everybody occupied. Like if everybody's worried about how the pyramids were built, or how, seeing Dogman or seeing Bigfoot, we're just going to be running around in circles trying to find something that can just go in and out of our eyesight. It could be still right there next to you, but you just don't see it because it's out of your visual spectrum.
So this is a great question. All right. Because I have people in this community come to me about, what do you call it? These things, Dogman, Bigfoot, all this stuff. I'm saying, look, right, man, I've heard stories where people are having wars with Dogmen and Bigfoot, and I just don't see it, right? Like to me, I'm not like, it's hard to get to, because people are saying, well, you say you can get out of body and stuff, but you don't believe in like Dogmen fighting battles on whatever. And it's like, I'm not polar. I'm telling you about an out-of-body experience because I've experienced it. I'm not talking about things I haven't experienced, right? So how much do you think that like affects us? The idea that we want to believe something that may not necessarily be true, right?
Well, it's always, when I was younger, I was always interested in the paranormal and that sort of thing. As a kid, I read some of the books and stuff like that. And that's why when the Time Life book series came out and I read Robert Monroe's book, I really was intrigued, obviously, because I was already involved in it. I just didn't know it. But I've always been really interested in it and all. And I think the unknown, whether it's witchcraft or sorcery or all these different things people get into, because it's an unknown. We just don't have answers for it. So it was like science at one time. And even with science, there's a lot of unknowns in there. So there's really, people just want to try to find something new. Like when Lewis and Clark first mapped the United States, they went out on their own. It was a huge challenge, but they took it on because it was a mystery to them.
Right.
And now we don't really have a lot of mysteries on Earth. We do, but we don't. They look to other things in order to study them and try to figure them out. I mean, people are intrigued by it.
Sure. But you, maybe I should have asked you, what do you personally believe about these things? Bigfoot, Dogman. It's kind of off topic, but maybe there's something astrally there. Maybe they're,
I don't question that they're not true, because there's been a lot of evidence that people have seen them and stuff like that. True. And I'm not calling anybody a liar, but what I'm saying is, from my viewpoint, it could be easily explained by them having the ability to go between realms, our visual spectrum, in and out, walk in and out of it. Because you see a couple hunters, they're like, oh yeah, watch this guy. he's going to see me walk across the road, and then I'm going to disappear, and I'll be standing right next to him, and he's like, oh, the thing's all gone. They're probably laughing their asses off. They're probably like, what a joke, I mean, who knows what kind of attitude, and they can make themselves look like whatever they want to. Maybe it's a demon, maybe it's an angel, whatever. They got to be laughing their asses off at us, thinking, what a bunch of dumbasses, he's running around the damn place looking for us, and we're standing right here, I mean, what kind of other factor would there be other than making us look like fools, or just keeping us occupied so that we're constantly searching for the UFO, the spaceship that just showed up out of nowhere and left, and all this kind of stuff. There's so many things that have happened that you just have to think that it's all part of the show. It's all part of the dog and pony circus,
Yeah, they definitely could just be. I mean, because I think about that too. Like, what would I do if I had the ability to do?
Oh, I'd be doing that.
I would toy with people. I'd be like,
for sure.
I don't want to ruin their lives or anything, but I'm about to trip this person out. Watch,
Yeah. Oh, who wouldn't want to?
Yeah. I get that. I think that sometimes too. But remember this, man. Remember when Monroe was did you ever have to battle anything? Because like when you read his books, he came across like little beings that would attach themselves to him, and he's freaking out trying to throw him off of him and praying. And then one time he was praying so hard that these other beings that were around him were saying, Lord, laughing at him, like listen to him praying to his God and laughing at him, Well, that's some pretty scary stuff.
I want to say this, and it's nothing against Robert Monroe, because I didn't know the man, and I enjoyed his first book. And then when I read his other two books, they were different. What I have to say is his institute was taken over by a 3-letter government agency long ago.
You think so?
And that's why I think his books changed.
You think it was more than just an experiment? Like they took over the whole thing?
Oh, they took it. They have it. I'm telling you, that's exactly what happened. And I believe that affected his publications, and I don't think it was his choice.
That's interesting thought, because most people tell me that. Like, I looked at the Monroe Institute as just something cool, right, that he created, and that the CIA and the government.
I was going to go there back in the 80s. I wanted to go there, but at the time I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But then that 3-letter agency took it over not long after that, and I believe that's when things probably started to change. And they can't be involved in anything and not take it over. So that's my thoughts. That is
kind of true. They can't really, everything that they've ever touched, they've had to control or put their, I hate to even think that, because I wanted to go to when I talked to Wesley Strieber, right? Or isn't his name's Wesley Strieber, not Wesley Strieber. Yeah. He told me he had the greatest time there, right? He started realizing that when he wrote Communion about the aliens, that as he started having these out-of-body experiences and stuff, right? Whitley Strieber, not Wesley Strieber. What am I thinking? Whitley Strieber. He started realizing that even these aliens could have something to do with like what you're saying, where they can come in and out of this realm, because a lot of people have these crazy experiences when they're in bed or when they're about to transition into sleep or things like that, It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had these dreams were like night terrors and stuff like that, and most of them were involved in me being abducted by something that I couldn't see. My eyesight would fade. I couldn't move my arms and legs. I couldn't scream. They would drag me through my parents' room, and it was like it was really happening. I had a lot of that kind of stuff, and I never could attribute it to anything. I didn't know if it was, it was just something that I experienced. And I can't say that it was one thing or another because I don't have any evidence to back it up. But I'm sure there are a lot of things that go on that people have no knowledge of. And there is so much misinformation and manipulation involved in everything that it's hard to find a ground basis for you to say, okay, well, this is true, and we'll go from here. This is the reality of our situation, and we'll go from here. And that's why I tell everybody, you need to investigate it and find it yourself, so that you know what, even if you don't know what truth is, if you know what the lies are, even if you can just pinpoint the untruths, at some point you will get to truth. But eliminate all the stuff that isn't serving you or serving us.
That makes sense. Yeah, because sometimes it's easier to find the lie than it is to find the truth.
Exactly. And if you can eliminate enough lies, then you can eventually, it's like peeling an onion. You get past all those layers of, of manipulation and lies and insulation that we're covered in. And you'll get to something that you can say at least, and even believing in something that you believe is the truth and it turns out to not be true, at least you've made a decision, a conscious decision.
Exactly.
That something fits. And if you have to reassess it somewhere down the line and it comes out to not be the truth, then you'll reassess it and find something else. But at least you're making the attempt to do that. And most people will either be too lazy or too complacent to decide to even do this.
That's true. That's totally true. How much do you think that your willpower affects your ability to do this? I mean, we talked about it earlier. I meant to ask you more on this subject, but when you said it, that when I try to do something, I put my mind to it. I let nothing stop me. Well, that's exactly how I had the out-of-body experience. I was almost obsessed with making sure that I accomplished this thing, right? And then when you said that, I realized, well, pretty much anything we become totally focused on or put our will into, I guess the magicians call it will or whatever, but you could just say focus, right? Like anything that you tell yourself, I'm going to do this and nothing's going to get in my way. Do you think that's part of our power as humans based on your astral travels and all this other stuff?
Yeah, based on our spiritual system and the way things work within us. I guess I can put it this way, and I had to think about it. I think about a lot of things and I have to reassess on a constant basis to try to figure out, what the reality of the situations are and how I come to the conclusions of certain things. So what I did was I decided, okay, how do I explain exactly what's happened? Because when people say, well, I don't have the wherewithal to be able to go through it.
Right.
Yeah, you do. Because I've come to the conclusion that what I've done is I've taken something that's almost impossible to understand. I have no resources to look back on or to access in order for me to get information. So I've got the impossible in front of me, and I've got 30 years involved into it.
That's a long time, man.
The only way that I've been able to move an inch forward is through sheer determination and trial and error. I didn't know how to create a portal. I didn't understand. So I thought, well, let me just try. Let me try to feel the same way that I do when I'm having the experience. And it did work. Now I can't explain how I do that because I have nothing to compare it to. And so if you didn't have it, but I can help others do that. The other thing is when you don't have anybody else to confide in or anybody else to help along, you have to trust yourself.
That's right.
You have to really go deep. I mean, you have to go to the point where you're like, where you actually feel like you have no idea what to do. You're just, you're out of answers. You lay it all out and say, screw it. This is where I'm at. I can't do anything worse than I'm going to do this.
Right.
I just started thinking of stuff up top of my head. Do this. And then eventually you will get to a point where you're like, wow, if I wouldn't have got to that point, then I probably wouldn't be able to move forward. You have to realize that you're going to be at a crossroads, that you feel like you don't have any direction, and just go. Just move ahead. I don't care what direction it is, move ahead, and you will trip and fall into the right path.
You don't seem like the kind of guy that likes to stay at a crossroads very long. I don't.
No,
I
don't like crossroads because you know what? I like to make a decision and I like to move on. I like to be active. I want to get moving.
Right.
I want to see things happen. And I'm probably the worst guy when it comes to, I am the most impatient person in the world. But you know what? I've been subjected to being so patient that it makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. People will come into your life that'll give you patience, man. Yeah. But still, I still believe that you can't let, even even your partner, like even your spouse, as much as you love them, right? Or your children, you still can't let them take over your authenticity or the spiritual you or your journey or, I mean, whatever. I think we get that confused too, right? With things like,
well, my wife didn't support it at first.
I'm sure she didn't.
I'm practicing it, and I'm just not gonna say anything. I just didn't say. For years, I didn't say anything. I'm like, and she was kind of like, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
Kind of, I think she knew that I didn't give up because I just don't give up.
Right.
And so she didn't ask me until years later. I finally said something, and she's like, well, I just don't understand what that's about. So I'm like, okay, cool.
What practical purpose? How's that going to how is that going to like get us a house or help us retire? That's usually what women are thinking about, right? How's that going to make our earth life better? Right. How's it going to pay the bills?
Right.
But man, to empower people, and this is what I've tried to explain to people in my life. Look, yeah, there may be hard times or whatever, but once you have this kind of authenticity and power and freedom, and I'm sure you wrote about this in your second book, right? Like, there isn't really, imagine the freedom of realizing I can be as abundant as I want to be, and I can overcome just about anything as long as I don't give in to these belief sets that start to bring this fear upon me. I'm a creative being. Why the hell am I afraid to begin with?
And I don't think fear is even the biggest factor for me. It wasn't, but I think the hardest point is you deal with your daily life and you're enthralled in everything that's happening around you, and you're so hyper focused on it that even when I first started having these astral projections and portal, I would forget about it because it was pruned from my memory almost, because it wasn't on the importance list. It wasn't high enough on the importance list so that I would just kind of forget about it, and things would happen in my regular life, and then I would be reminded by having another one, or I would start to get these sensations of like energy movement within my body. It was constantly coming back to me as a reminder, you started this, you need to follow through, Right. And so finally, at some point, I said, okay, I give in. I'm going to put this stuff aside, and I'm going to move full steam ahead. That doesn't mean that everything fell in line for me, because it didn't. Yeah. It never fell in line for me. Things, I still had to work hard for it, and I still had to get frustrated, and I still went through all the phases that everybody else goes through it. So when you think about things being easy for people, even if you're a person that astral projects, and like you said, it was easier for you in the past, it doesn't mean it was easy. It doesn't mean everything that you dealt with in your life was easy. It doesn't mean that the whole process was easy. It doesn't mean that what you were looking for was easy. So just because you're able to do one thing doesn't make everything else easier.
That's true. That's totally true. Yeah. But it does, I would say that it does give you, not making things easy, but maybe becoming less afraid of uncomfortable things or unknown things.
Or understanding.
Yeah. Not doesn't make life easier, right? It doesn't mean, I astral traveled so I can sit on my ass and everything's going to come my way, right? No, but what I mean is, it's like, it makes things to where it's like, where you're less afraid of the unknown, and your ability to look at life and the unknown and uncomfortable stuff is more of an adventure than it would be something to be just totally trembling afraid of,
It answers some of your questions. It gives you a basis that you didn't have before, an understanding and a perception that you didn't have before you had it. Right. And now you have a new level of understanding of something that most people don't have. So now when you look at things, you can look at them from a different perspective, because like I said, you can't unsee what you've seen, and you can't see what you haven't seen. So you can't understand what you haven't seen. So you now make your decisions and process information with a knowing and an understanding that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
So the way you think might not match what a lot of people think, unless you meet somebody that might be similar to you because they've had similar experiences.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for, because You know, it's one thing to inspire people, but some people just don't look. I guess that what I'm trying to say is that I understand you, Mike, and what your books are about, regardless if I'm sure there's some things that we might not agree on once I read the book, you know, fully. But I wish there were more people like you that would say, look, I mean, I need to know this stuff experientially. And yes, it's going to be an adventure to figure this stuff out. And yes, I may have to pivot and make up my own decisions to figure this stuff out. But I want to explore my consciousness, and I want to be a free, sovereign, spiritual person here and be less afraid of it all, you know. And just
I want that for other people, because that's why I'm doing this. I mean, for me, I can go and talk about my own experiences all day long, and that doesn't do anything for me. I mean, I'm only coming here in hopes that I can start a spark in somebody's life to where they'll maybe begin to go on their path, or if they're already on their path, to maybe give them a little kick in the ass, a little bit of a boost to help them along. Because every once in a while, somebody needs to have a little bit of a pep talk, or some people need to hear something that might trigger something in their lives that really helps them out. So when I put out videos on my Rumble channel, it's not about me. It's about sharing my experiences, sharing things that I think will maybe help other people. And that's the whole purpose behind it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. What would you say to anybody what do you think the biggest thing they're going to take from your book, your first book? What do you think the biggest thing they'll take away from that book? The biggest thing you're trying to get the message out to them? I know it's about your explorations, but the number one thing you hope someone would take away from My Dark Explorations, Portals, Gateways, and Astral.
What I would hope that people would take away from that is the fact that we all have the abilities to do things that we can't even understand. I didn't know I had the ability to do that, because the first time I saw them, for years, I didn't even know what they were. I was having these experiences, but I was like, you know. And then the first time that I was able to initiate one, then I was like, wow, did I actually do that, or was it somebody else doing it? So I had to keep doing it in order to prove to myself that it wasn't somebody else doing it. So, you know, you're unsure of yourself. You're unsure of what's going on. You don't, like I said, you don't have people that you can ask questions because nobody else has any experience in it. So moving ahead and allowing yourself to be able to be open enough to see what you're capable of. And one thing I have to say is, if you even once see any inkling of what you have available to yourself, you are going to change your whole perspective on the way things look.
Exactly. Yeah.
I changed my perspective. And when people say, well, how did you change it? I can't tell you, because I'm at a point now where I'm into it for a long time. And when I see things, when I have these experiences, it's not like the first time that I had it before. It's like I've had it for so long that I'm not desensitized, but I'm more hyper focused on what I see, so that I'm bringing the information back. I'm not excited because I know kind of what to expect, but I'm more focused on what I can share with other people and what that experience is going to bring to the grand scheme of things and how I perceive it.
Yeah, because imagine a world that if we lived in and everybody had your experience or my experience or something like our experience. Not just a 15%, but let's say 70% of the population had these experiences that you and I have had, right? Man, yeah. everything would change.
Well, everything would change. And, you know, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I have a lot of flaws.
No, I ain't saying that either. I
still make a lot of bad decisions.
We'd be on a different direction for sure.
Right. Oh, yeah. We would be on a different direction. We would be in a different understanding of how things work. So I can never compare myself now from what I was before this, because I there's no way that I could even, I could have myself right next to me and I could say, okay, well, I can compare myself, but there's no way. Once you begin to change, it's like once the can is open, it won't fit back in the can. You throw the can away. You're something else. You're someone else.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, and one thing I don't really talk too much about. Once you feel the energy flow in your body at certain times. Now, let me get you as close to that concept as you can. So, say you're in a dream, and all of a sudden something, what you would maybe say scary or frightening, or maybe something that catches you off guard. And all of a sudden you feel this rise of energy, the hair on the back of your neck is just standing out like this thing is going to jump on me at any time. And I mean, it's like a total rush of energy. Now, that energy is not just flowing through your body, it's flowing through your spirit, because you're not going to feel that in your body on the astral when you're having a dream. So what you're doing is that's an energy flow. Now, once you begin to open yourself up and realize what's happening and accept some of the truths or accept some of your own perspective and your own perceptions, then you'll begin to understand and feel that flow of energy. And once you experience it out of like fear or anguish or anything like that, you will understand that there is something within you that is so powerful that you have absolutely no concept of what it's capable of. And that's why I think we are being so heavily manipulated and so heavily watched, because if this starts to come out, then people are just gonna, it's just, I can't even explain it, but once you feel that, you are on a completely different realm. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but once you feel it, you will have absolutely no question of what the capabilities of of spiritual beings is.
Yeah, once you tap into, because I remember what that was like when people were saying, "Oh, move your energy, feel your energy, this energy," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Feel your energy? I don't feel shit. I don't feel nothing. What are you talking about?" Right? Like, I feel my body. I feel the way I normally feel. What do you mean? You know? And then I did have one experience, you know, and mainly it was the out of body stuff and a couple of meditations I've done where I felt a vibration in my body and I felt an energy. It was more like a creative energy of an awareness, right? Or I felt close to source, like you were talking about. So the more I started doing things to feel closer to source, but to come into my own individually, is this like energy that started kind of building up that I did feel. And I'm like, oh, is this what they're talking about? You know, I don't know if it's that or if it's the vibration, but I felt something that I never felt before, you know.
One way I tell people that you might be able to experience it is go in a room with a good rate stereo, something, sit in there and turn it up.
Yeah.
And play songs that you really like. Okay. Now, a lot of people have this ability that if a certain part of the song or a certain song will come on, you will physically get goosebumps all over your body. When that comes on, you're in that realm and it's just everything's firing off, because music will initiate that in a lot of people. It's not always the same songs, but if you try that and experiment with it, and even if you're in the car, whatever, play those tunes, play that music and turn it up. And once you get that feeling, there will be absolutely no deniability that there's something going on. So, you know, try every aspect that you can to prove to yourself and understand and accept that you are way more, because there's more of it available. And a lot of people, because it's not high on their priority list in their life, it's pushed back and pushed back. Subconsciously, a lot of times we're reminded, but we just ignore it because, you know, we've got other things going on. You got kids and you got jobs and you got bills and everything else is going on. You keep pushing it back, but you need to let it out. You need to allow that to come forward in your life.
Right. I totally agree with you on that 100%. And we're out of time here, man, but I'd love to have you back on the show at some point and then to keep this conversation going. But if you can, tell us what you like. Do you plan on writing any more books, or how they can find your books, that kind of thing? You know, because once people come on the show, they tend to follow a little and they want to keep following.
Yeah, I write the books. They're short and to the point, so I try to keep them like that. So I know it's hard to go through a 200 and 300 page book and really maybe a third of it's the information that you really want to get to. That's why I make them short, sweet. So they're both available on Amazon. And then I'm going to keep publishing. And what I'll do is I usually take a couple months to write something because I want to get good content in there. And then once I write it, I'll just release it. So one was written in March of last year, 2023, and I just released one in March 26th of this year. And then I'm just going to go ahead and try to do like maybe every 6 months or something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm posting videos on Rumble on a regular basis. And what I'll do is now I'm focusing on the new book, information related to that. And I try to go deeper into the subject so that I can put my personal experiences related to that. And I think people can relate to that a little bit better than just writing basic information. I want to go deeper into it with the videos so they can kind of get a better understanding of what might help them on their way.
Yeah.
And so I'll just continue to do that, support it on my Rumble channel. And so follow me on Rumble, and then I can just, I'll keep putting stuff on there. And all the interviews that I try to get copies of, so I can post those on there as well so people can see them and get a better understanding of what's going on.
And I'll leave Michael's all of his links down here in the description, in the video description, and also in the podcast description when the podcast is released, so you guys can follow him. And thanks again. I really enjoyed it, man. I rarely meet people that are kind of, I'm not saying we're doing the exact same thing, but I think our attitudes about certain things are pretty close, and I really appreciate it to be able to talk to someone like that.
It's nice to be able to talk to somebody on the same level so that you have a good understanding of what's going on. And that way you can ask questions that the audience would probably have questions. When you have a good interaction, the audience is going to completely, they're going to benefit totally off of this because they can get a lot of information that they probably wouldn't have, because people just kind of follow a strict structure. You don't get that out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And for sure. I hope we can do this again sometime. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming on.
Look forward to it.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Mike. Some of those shows, I rarely, and I mean rarely do pre-records, but I had so many guests booked that I had to do that. So I just hung out with y'all in the chat. Now, tomorrow night's show will we'll be here with Ronnie Pontiac, who I'm stoked about it. Like, it's kind of like being able to, I guess, energetically be around somebody that was around Manly P. Hall, even though Jeff Harmon said he was around him, but this guy learned directly from Manly P. Hall. So, and he's got some books out, so he's going to be on the show tomorrow night. And I guess it was, that really sucks. I'm sorry that you couldn't order a shirt. I forget your name. Who was it? Was it Joyce? It was probably Joyce. I updated the plugin, so you should be able to order it. I had an order go through today. I don't know. But if you do get a shirt, send us your pictures so we can put you up on the wall, right? And then if you don't, if you can't for any reason, just DM me on Facebook, wherever you can DM me at, and you can donate for how much ever the shirt is, and then I'll send it out to you and then give you the order form. I can do that too. I hate when stuff doesn't work, man. That sucks. But that was a really cool show. There's some things that I don't really agree with, but they're like most of the stuff with Mike, I agreed with. I'm going to say like 95% of what he was talking about, I agreed with, especially as far as, like the attitude of conscious exploration and stuff like that. But it's very interesting. I'm pretty jealous of anybody that can make portals open up in the astral realm, whether it's lucid dreaming or the astral. I'm jealous of it. So, and Ronnie Pontiac's going to be on here tomorrow, Lisa. And so that's tomorrow night, and then Tuesday Aaron Voot will be on, and then I'm trying to get more guests on, and then if I don't, we'll probably get back into some, book reading and talk about some of that stuff. But I do want to put up an episode of my review or something. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of hard to get Jason back on because he's going on a lot of podcasts, but I did read the book, Gates of the Anunnaki. And I think, like when Manly P. Hall talked about there's 7 seals to divine revelation, I think Jason Quitz probably opened up one of them in that book, honestly. So what's up, Pepe? It's good to see all you guys. It's fun to hang out here every night. And We also broadcast, like I said, on Twitch and Kick under Magic Maniac, Magic with a CK. I'll probably do a little gaming on those channels too. Maybe on YouTube, I don't know. But it was fun. Keep on doing what you guys are doing. I'm glad and I'm very grateful that you guys show up with your presence here every night. Out of all the stuff that you could be doing, there's so much stuff to look at and entertain your minds with on the internet. It really does feel like it's a blessing. So thank you. And like I said, if you guys can support, please do so. All right, we're going to get out of here. We ran a little late. I kept you guys too long. Make sure that if you get out of body, and we will do another, what do you call it? Show on Astral Travel, because I want to find a place to where we can all go to or something like that, like we used to talk about, right? Yeah. All right. We got to roll out of here. Thanks for coming out, you guys. Good night, y'all. The bath or something.
I was sitting in a room that looked out onto a garden, and the stillness filled me. Bitterness drifted from me. I was as near paradise as I am likely to get again. I was thinking of the chaos we had caused in one another. I was thinking of our future.
All of our lives they've had control of us through their schools, through their electronic media. They've had control of us all of our lives. They have programmed us. They have made us become reactionary. We don't think, we react to what they do. They tell us that progress means all these things have to happen. They tell us that we can't go back to the old way. They tell us be realistic. But there is no old way, no new way. There is a way of life.
If there's anything that the predator class fears, it's a clear-thinking human being.
Hi, this is Janet, and I'm trying to donate for the toys on the kickstand site, and I'm having some problems. I'm having a little bit of a problem. No, I'm so sorry. 2 Adderall, Jan. One isn't going to do anything. 2, please. Yeah, chop that one up and give me the other one. Okay, so I'm on the website and I'm trying to donate, and I'm a little flustered because I love this channel. I love the Paranoid Guy and Juan and the Donor Nut Guy. Like, this is wonderful. If you can, just kind of, I'm watching, so tell me how to do it. Tell me how to donate towards the toys. And I'm recently on the market. Well, you know, he doesn't know that I'm looking for somebody. But so if you can, please just text me back. All 3 of you, if you like, you know, it's America, right? 3 text with your social credit scores, your net worth, and a picture of that big old pickup truck that you have. I am so excited. Could you please help me figure out this kickstand thing, and I will donate towards whatever you guys need, whatever you need. Thank you. Yeah, just maybe one more Adderall. Thank you.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Decaffeinated Hot Dogs, the Frankfurters that contain absolutely no caffeine. Of course, our regular hot dogs don't contain any caffeine either, so we have to add caffeine and then remove it so that it truly is decaffeinated. Sure, Ed's Decaffeinated Hot Dogs cost a lot more than other brands, but no other luncheon meat producer goes to so much trouble to provide you with wieners that don't even have a speck of caffeine. So pick up a dozen or more packages of Ed's Decaffeinated Hot Dogs today. And while you're at it, why not